Going live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to have all of you here today, one more time with our TSS Sunday lectures. Um, Today we're going to have Teresa with our presenting our lecture, and we would like to welcome everyone that's joined us online. As we've been doing the last few weeks, we're going to have a little discussion afterwards. There's a panel that's going to join us, um, and um, and we're going to be able to not only learn from Teresa and the presentation, but also have a nice discussion about the topics of the today. Okay, so we're going to start today by first, and I'll be reading a small passage for you um, from the book. Um, uh, from the book. Give me one second here. Let me just look at the it's from the Matthew, from the Gospel, chapter 5 and 25. And then after that, we're going to have a prayer, and then Teresa is going to start for us. Okay? So it's a very small passage. So it starts as reconcile quickly with your adversary while you are on the way with him, so that he does not hand you over to the judge, and so that the judge does not hand you over to the officer, and so that you will not be thrown into prison. That's Jesus from Matthew. After having received the exhortation of this passage, many ennobled souls suffer inwardly when confronted with the hardness of a former adversary who is willing to reconcile. The Master's warning, however, is fundamentally consoling to individual conscience. The Master's recommendation to reconcile is like saying, do your part. Correct your past errors as such as possible. Make every effort to display your persevering goodwill. Insist on kindness and understanding. If your adversary is unmoved, think of the time when you two were unaware of the fundamental obligations and see if you yourself did not act even worse. If he or she is a bad person, count him or her among the sick and imbalanced road to recovery. Do as much good as possible while you're walking the same path, because if your enemy is so implacable that he or she seeks to turn you over to the judge at any cost, you too will have evidence of proofs to present. A legitimate trial includes all the pieces, and only spirits thoroughly impenetrable to the good will suffer the rigors of justice in extreme. Strive, therefore, as much as possible for harmony. But if your adversary scorns your good intentions, reconcile yourself with your own conscience and wait trustingly. So, dear friends, we're going to take this moment, elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus, to our Father, Mother God, and you ask your blessings for this morning, for our lives, for our world, particularly during these times when we're going to trials, the challenges, where we see so many people with different opinions, with contrasting ideas, resorting to extreme measures, where we see fissures in our societies, in our governments, in ourselves. Let us take this warning from Jesus and let's do our part, as Chico Xavier writes here to the Spirit Emmanuel. Let us do our part, uniting ourselves in the spirit of love. And let's do this moment, this next hour, so we can learn and understand a little bit more about it with our friend Teresa. Let's ask for the blessings for this lecture and let us all open our hearts and our minds for this opportunity. So be it.
So,
So, Teresa, thank you very much. And we can get started. And then we're going to join you again at the end for some questions and some discussions. Okay. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Marco. Thank everyone for being here today for this lecture. Today we're going to be talking about life and death, or mostly we're going to be talking about what happens at the moment of death, or as we call the moment of discarnation. right? So in general, and we're going to be, this lecture today pretty much comes from two books, from the Spirit's book, part 2, chapter 2 and 3, and the book Heaven and Hell, part 2, okay, chapter 1. And that's exactly, those chapters talk about exactly of this, of what happens at the moment of a discarnation, right? So most of people, they fear death, right? But actually, a lot of them don't fear death per se, but what they really dread is the moment of a transition, like what's going to expect, because usually we're very afraid of the unknown, what we don't know, what we don't know what's going to happen. And because we don't know, it creates that anxiety and that fear of death, right? Because like Kardec says in the book Heaven and Hell, death is a trip that no one can decline, right? Any other trip I can invite you to go and say, oh no, I don't want to go, but the moment of disconnection arrives, nobody can say, oh no, thank you, I'll stay here a little longer. We don't have that option, right? When it comes, and it's a trip that we all gonna have to take, the rich, the poor, it doesn't matter when you leave, we all gonna have to take this trip. But again, because we don't know what's gonna happen, it creates that anxiety, and it's something that really people are afraid of, right? And for us here as incarnated, when you're observing someone discarnated, if you had the opportunity sometimes to be beside a loved one who's, in the moment of death, and the moment that's they're discarnating, from our side here as incarnated, our observation, we can see that some people can go in a very peaceful way, and some people can be on a very tormented way, right? They're tormented by the idea that they're going, they have agitation. And I work in a hospital, so I can see this a lot. People, they're going a very peaceful way, and people, you see that they are tormented, right? But that's us here, observation as incarnated spirits. But what happens with the spirit on the spiritual side? Like, what's happening with this? How is the spirit feeling in that moment of disconnection, that moment of death, right? And when I'm going to talking about death here during this lecture, I'm obviously talking about the death of the body only, right? Because the spirit doesn't die. So what happens with the spirit at that moment? How the spirit is disconnected from the body? Is it painful? Is it instantaneous? So the moment that the body stops working, the spirit gets out right away? How it happens, right? And those are questions that until Spiritism came, neither science or religion could tell us. Science can tell you, because science only can talk about what they can see, what they can prove, and because you don't see a spirit coming out of the body, they say that doesn't exist. Even though now slowly that's changed, there's a lot of scientific research now trying to prove the existence of the soul. And religions in general, they're very good to tell us where we're going. So when you die, you're going to go either to heaven or hell, or any other concepts that it's giving to us of what's going to happen once we disconnect, right? But none of them really told us, but what happened at the moment of a discarnation, how that happens, right? So Spiritism is the only one so far that can explain how this transition occurs. And not only because it presents the knowledge of the nature of the soul, but because we have the spirits themselves telling us how it was for them. So now we have the communication. So from the spirits, from the spiritual plan, come and say, hey, when I discarnated, that's what happened. That's what I felt. To me, it was very painful. To me, it was very easy. And in fact, that's what the book Heaven and Hell it is. The second part of the book, which is, it's an amazing book. It's part of the Kardec's codification, one of the 5 books. And it's an amazing book. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't read it, and it's not much spoken about. But I think after the Gospel, it's my favorite book of the 5 books. And the second part is exactly what it is. It is communications from spirits from different levels, from highly evolved, more evolved spirits, to spirits that are not evolved at all morally, and talking about how it was for them, how was this discarnation, how they're feeling now on the spiritual plan. So now we have them coming to tell us through Spiritism. Now we have them coming and telling us this was for me, and giving us that information, right? So one of the things that we always ask is, it is painful. Is this connection from the spirit or from the body is painful? So the first thing that we need to understand is that the soul or the spirit, and I have to remember that soul and spirit is the same thing. What Kardec says is that when we are in the spiritual plan, we are spirits, but when we're incarnated, when the spirit is incarnated, then it's a soul. But exactly the same thing. Soul, spirit is the same thing. One is in the spiritual plan, is when you're in the state of the spiritual plan, once you incarnated, okay? But same thing, spirit, soul, no difference. So we have to understand is that the spirit or the soul, that the one that suffers everything and not the body. Okay, so the body is not more than an instrument of pain. Okay, so actually, it's the spirit that feels cold, hot, pain, the emotions. Everything is the spirit that feels. The body is just an instrument that transmits that information to the soul. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about that. It's going to make it a little bit easier to understand. Okay. And exactly, first to understand this process, how come is the soul, but if I'm cutting my body, how come is the soul that's feeling the pain? We need first to understand all the parts that are involved in this process. Okay. So when we incarnated, we have the spirit, which is who we are. And that's one thing that we have always to remember. The spirit is who we are. We don't have a spirit. We are a spirit, right? Because even as a spiritist, we tend to say, oh, we have a spirit. No, we don't have a spirit. I have my glasses, I have clothing. I don't have a spirit. I am a spirit, okay? So we are a spirit. And that's why we keep our individuality after death, because that's who we are. So the sentiments, the knowledge, that's me, that's who I am, that's the spirit, okay? So there is us, the spirit or the soul, okay? Then we have the perispirit. So the perispirit is a fluidic envelope of the soul, okay? This is never separates from the spirit before or after death, and actually never separates from the spirit, or I should say almost never, because the truth is the perispirit, this fluidic envelope, is the same while you're here on Earth. Okay, so it's made of a fluid that it's adapted to the atmosphere of this planet. Once I have to start to reincarnate in a different planet, then I'll change that perispirit, because then I'm going to have a perispirit, or this fluid envelope that covers my whole spirit, that is adapted to the atmosphere of that other planet. Okay, but let's take this aside a little bit. While you're here on Earth, the spirit and the spirit, they never disconnect from each other. So they almost seen as a whole, as a one thing, even though they're two separate things and they're not the same thing, but they're seen as a one thing, okay, because they always connected. Okay, so the perispirit is always this fluidic material, same material that's involving our spirit. Okay. So in fact, there is no spirit without a perispirit, but also there's no perispirit without a spirit. They always together. Okay. So like I said, it's a semi-material body. So it's not as dense as this material body, organic body that we have. Otherwise, would be seeing discarnated people everywhere, and we don't, exactly because the perispirit is not as dense as our body, but also is not as fluidic as our spirit. So it's an in-between there, okay, a semi-material body there, envelope, and it works as an intermediary between the spirit and the body. Okay, and we're going to talk about a little bit more there, how it works as an intermediary between the spirit and the body. Okay, so we have the spirit, that's who we are. So there's us, the spirit. There is the spirit, which is this envelope that we're wearing all the time. We never come out. There is the body you all understand, this body that we have. And there is something called the vital fluid. So the vital fluid is a form of energy that gives organic life to the body. So it doesn't give life to the spirit. The spirit it's a life on itself. It gives organic life to the body. So just giving an analogy here, if you have a car, right? You go inside of a car. So imagine that you inside of a car, it's you, with you are spirit with the perispirit inside of the car. The car is the body. But the truth is, you can be inside of the most amazing car, like top-notch Lamborghini, brand new, shining. If there's no gas in it, you go nowhere. It doesn't matter which car you take it. If there's no gas, this car doesn't run. So the gas is the vital fluid. So our bodies need this fluid to allow the organic body to have a life, to work. The same way that a car needs a gas to run, okay? So that's the vital fluid. So basically we have all those four things connected: us, the spirit, the perispirit, the body, and the vital fluid, okay? So when the spirit is incarnated, so when we incarnated, our perispirit is connected with each cells of the body. So it's actually the way that our spirit connects to the body is through the perispirit, because actually it's the cells, the atoms of the perispirit that will connect with every single cell of our body. There's not a single cell atom of our body that's not connected with the cells and atoms of the perispirit, okay? So the perispirit will serve as this vehicle to transmit the physical sensations of the body to the soul. So if this room here is cold, my body will perceive the coldness, will send that information to the perispirit, and the perispirit is going to send it to the soul. And then the soul, which is me, I'm going to feel cold. So in the end, it's the spirit that's feeling cold. The body is just the instrument that will transmit the information to the soul through the perispirit, saying this room is cold. And at the same time, the soul, so us, we're going to use our perispirit to act upon the body. So this room is cold. The body is going to send this information to the soul through the perispirit, saying, hey, the room is cold. So then me, as a soul, as a spirit here, I'm feeling cold. Like, oh my gosh, this is cold. I need to get up and go grab a sweater. So what I'm going to do through my perispirit, I'm going to control my body to say, let's get up and go grab a sweater and let's wear a sweater. Okay. So that's why we say that perispirit is this intermediary between the body and the soul. So it takes all the sensations from the environment that the body perceives and transmits to the soul, transmits to us, right? If I see a scene that's very sad, my organic eyes are going to see, send the information from my spirit, but it's my spirit that's going to feel sad. The body doesn't feel sad, right? But then my reaction as a spirit, through the perispirit, is going to cause my body to have tears, right? But it's me who said, the body is not sad. The body has no intelligence. The body doesn't cry. The body just reacts upon whatever the spirit wants the body to react. Okay, so the spirit is in control of the body, and the perispirit, it's in the middle. Okay. Yeah. So when there is the extinction of the organic life, so basically when we run out of that gas, okay, it starts to produce it produces the separation of the soul from the body. So remember how the perispirit and the body was completely connected, so atom by atom. Well, when there's no organic life anymore, it has to start to disconnect. Or sometimes that's the moment they start disconnection, but that's when it's going to happen. For sure, the disconnection is going to have to happen, okay? Because once there's no organic life anymore, the forces that keep the bounding don't exist anymore, and they're going to have to disconnect. And actually, just so you guys, just as a side note here, if you want to know how it is actually the connection is made, I suggest you to read the book Missionaries of Light. There's about 2 or 3 chapters that talking about the reincarnation of Segismundo, that talks about how it's done. And it's done cell by cell. So the moment of conception, the perispirit of this spirit that's going to reincarnate starts to bond with the new body, cell by cell, atom by atom. Okay. So the disconnection, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be cell by cell, atom by atom, is going to be disconnected. Okay. So when there is this extinction of the organic life, it's going to produce the separation of the soul from the body. So in other words, when the vital fluid that keeps the organic life ends, this fluid connection between the pure spirit and the body, it's broken. So it's the same thing. You drive in your car, you run out of gas, the car won't run anymore, right? And what's your option? Get out of the car. Because you can stay inside of the car as much as you want, the car is not going to run again. So the option that we have is to get out of the car. Okay. So here's the same thing. Once there's no more organic life, the spirit has no other option and but start to disconnect the pure spirit. Okay. So the disconnection doesn't occur immediately. Okay. This disconnection between the pure spirit and the body, it happens little by little, organ by organ, cell by cell, until not a single atom of the pure spirit is connected with any molecule of the body. So the disconnection is complete. Okay. So it's very it's a slow process, and it's one by one. It's not like I'm out of here. Okay. So the pure spirit and body don't disconnect it right away in that sense. Okay. So when we take all in this in consideration, when we go back to our questions, but the disconnection, is the spirit suffering during disconnection? Is this painful? How it's gonna happen? What is the spirit is gonna feel? Well, the amount of suffering when the death of the body occurs will depend on the adhering forces that still connect in the body and the spirit, and the pure spirit. So in other words, is the amount of suffering that the soul experiences will depend directly from the number of points of contact between the body and the pure spirit, which means how much both are still intimately connected. So the more the pure spirit and the body are connected at the moment of the end of organic life, the longer will take for the disconnection happens, because it's going to be cell by cell, organ by organ. It's going to take longer, and consequently, it's going to have more suffering, because the spirit that's still connected to that body is going to still feel all the effects of decomposition. So everything that the body's feeling, the soul is gonna feel it, right? So it is that amount of connections that's still between pure spirit and body at the moment of end of the organic life, which means at the moment of the gas, we run out of the gas, how much we still connected is what's going to dictate how much suffering, or how difficult, or how long it's going to take for the disconnection to finish. Okay. So it can be from being instantaneous. At the moment that you run out of gas, we have no more organic life, the spirit is just like disconnect and go. Or it can take days, weeks, or even months. Okay. In fact, it can take a long time for the disconnection to happen, but that doesn't mean, so it's something that we have to be very clear. Even if it takes weeks or months for this to disconnect, that doesn't mean that
So I think we have a connection issue with Teresa, but we're going to work on bringing her up very, very soon. Give me 1 second. And she's going to connect very soon. Okay. Again, just give us just a couple minutes. We're going to have everyone connected again. So while Teresa is reconnecting, so we can all, continue waiting for a few more minutes, maintaining our thoughts here in this very interesting topic that we're discussing today, which was Teresa was presenting to us, the connection between the perispirit and the spirit and the spiritual body and the physical body. If you guys have any questions, we are still live at at all our media channels, social media links. So you're welcome to write any questions you have. And Teresa is coming up at this moment, so I'm very happy to see her join us again.
Okay, sorry, but my internet dropped and I'm actually using a hot wire with my cell phone right now.
There you go. We're very happy to see you again, Teresa.
Okay, sorry about that. So just as I was saying, just because once the vital fluid ends, there's no organic life, even though the disconnection take weeks and months, the body, the soul cannot act upon the body anymore. Okay, there's no returning to life. There's no way for us to come back. Otherwise, if the spirit could act upon a body that there's no organic life, we would see a lot of dead people moving around, and for at least for a few days or a few weeks, right? It's not gonna happen. So in the end, what's really going to dictate how long or how painful is going to be this process is our moral evolution. So basically, depending on how much we're still attached to the material things, including our body, is what will dictate the amount of suffering and time it will take for this transition to happen. So if I'm inside of my Lamborghini and I run out of gas and I say, I'm not leaving here because it's a Lamborghini and I love my Lamborghini and I'm not gonna go, guess what? It's gonna be very painful to come out of that Lamborghini because I don't wanna go and I don't like it and I love my car and I'm not gonna go. But if the person say, you know what? It is beautiful Lamborghini. I'm very grateful to having it, but it's the time. I don't need this. It's just was as an instrument was given to me. Then temporarily I used for what I needed, and it's okay. I understand that's not mine. It's time to return. When I run out of gas, I open the door and I get out of the car. Okay, so it's the same thing here. The more materialistic we are, so the more we live a life led by selfishness, by pride, by greed, the more we live a materialistic life, and consequently, the process of incarnation will take longer, okay? Because at the moment that I run out of a gas, most likely my perispirit and my body are going to be completely connected, or a lot of connections to be existing, right? And I'll most likely don't want to go, and then it's going to take longer because now there's more points of connection between the two to be broken, okay? But for the ones who are more evolved and try to live a life led by fraternity, less selfishness, the process will be less painful and will take less time. And in fact, and the more evolved spirits, when the organic life expires, they're pretty much already disconnected from the body. They only have like a last thread. Because what's happened with the vital fluid, when we're getting closer to our moment of a discarnation, we start to run out of vital fluid, okay? Especially, and it's easy for us to perceive this in when people have like a terminal illness, like a terminal cancer, or something that we know they're going. Their vital fluid, it is already going down. And as goes down, the disconnection of cell by cell already happens, right? So at the moment of this person has the last breath, so we completely run out of a gas, completely run out of a vital fluid, most of the pure spirit and the body are already disconnected. So the amount of fibers or cells that still need to be disconnected from one another, it's minimum. And Kardec says some of the spirits, they even just have a thread, which is almost that umbilical cord that we all have, that it's the last one to be cut. And again, André Luiz in his books explained that very clearly how it happens. But there's always the last, it's almost like the umbilical cord is the last one to be cut. And a lot of those spirits, Kardec says, that they even see, they're so disconnected, they're so disconnected from the material things, that the moment of they run out of organic life, they only have the one thread, and they even see the last thread being, in the spiritual plan, they see the last thread being cut, and they go. So they suffer nothing. They don't suffer any of the consequence of the decomposition of the body. And actually, the moment of the end of organic life, they pretty much almost disconnected. That's why he says that for some can be almost instantaneous, that disconnection between the body and the pure spirit and the body, but not because it happened all of a sudden. It's just because it has been disconnecting already. While the spirit is still having organic life, they're still incarnated, this disconnect, they're already letting go. They're not attached to them. They're not worried about where the house is going to stay, who's going to pay my money. They're not nothing. They let it go, right? A lot of people talking about here, like spirits that disconnect like that. I'm talking about like a Chico Xavier, I'm talking about Bezerra de Menezes, those are the really evolved spirits. They have no connections with the material stuff. So they really, at the moment of the end of organic life, they just disconnect. There's just a final fibers to be disconnected, and then they go, right? But if I'm really materialistic, I'm really attached to everything, most likely when the organic life ends, a lot of my pure spirit is still connected with, and the more connections I have, the longer it's going to take it, and then more suffering I'm going to have, because eventually this body, as soon as it ends the ground, is going to start the process of decomposition, and I'm still connected to this body, so most likely I'm going to feel it, everything, right? And that's a problem because, for example, in the case of suicide or violent sudden death, like someone who got shot or in a violent accident, where there's no gradual loss of vital fluid, the connection between the body and the pure spirit are still very strong. Okay, so they have a tank full of energy there. So this connection is still full on. Is different from the spirits that are close to the disconnection. Then even the spiritual planes are already helping to do the disconnection. No, they're full blown, like they're completely connected. They still have all their vital fluid, right? So this connection is still very strong, and it's going to lead to a slow and more painful separation, especially in the case of suicide, when most of the time the spirit will feel the sensations of the body decomposition, right? Because now the connection is really strong. It's going to take a long time now for this disconnection to happen, right? And And there's another aspect here that's very important for us to talk about that happens during this transition process, which is the state of confusion. Because that's the other thing that people ask about. Oh, is this going to be painful? It's not going to be painful, but also, am I going to know who I am as soon as I get to the other side? Do I'm going to meet with the people that disconnected before me right away? Do I'm going to be aware of what's happening right away? That also be depend, right? So we all go through a state of confusion. Of course, in the most purified spirits, they almost immediately are self-aware because their detachment from the matter during the corporeal life, they're already not attached to the material stuff. They're already, even though they're here, incarnated, they're already living a life more led by their spiritual side, by their moral values. So for them, it's pretty much like I went to sleep here and I woke up on the other side, okay? So the state of confusion is pretty much none, or it's more like shaken up a little bit and they wake up on the other side, okay? So in the purified spirit, they almost immediately are self-aware. So they know what's happening. They know they're no longer incarnated. They understand their spiritual plan. So much easier for them in that sense, okay? However, for the more materialistic individuals, the state of confusion will last longer. And it could take hours, it could take several months, it could take years. Some spirits can stay in the spiritual plan for years, still not understand they're discarnated. Okay. And especially imagine if you while you're here incarnated, you always believe there was nothing after death. Okay. You think that, you know, we're just a body. If we die, we're going to nothing. Now you discarnate, you still can think, you can see, you speak, you hear. I have a body because the perispirit is a body. It's the same material body that looks just like the body that we have, but it's not this dense body anymore. So I look to myself and say, oh, I have a body. So I'm alive, right? Because if I was dead, would be nothing, right? Because they don't understand that there's a death only of the body. They don't believe in the spirit. They believe in nothing. So if nothing is what happens after death and I have all of this, I'm still alive. And they think that the body that they're seeing, which is just the pure spirit, they think it's this organic body, and it's not. And no matter how much you try to explain, saying, listen, the body that you have is not the organic body. No, it is. I can see it. I can feel it. Yeah, so it is. I am still alive. So they think they're in a sense, they are right. They are still alive because the spirit is never going to die. But they are not alive in a sense, they're still incarnated. But they believe that they're incarnated. And then they don't understand why they're trying to talk with their families and they don't talk to them. So those are the spirits that when they disconnect, they're going to go try to find their families. They're going to try to go talk with them. And he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what's happening. Why they don't talk to me? Why they're selling my stuff? But that's my stuff. Why what they're doing? Like, you know, it's mine. It's so they're still in the state of confusion. Okay. So that's why it can take just a glimpse, that state of confusion, but it can take weeks, can take days, hours, months, years, and there's many different aspects that can lead to this state of confusion, right? How much materialistic I am or not, how much understanding of what happens after life, but also it mostly depends on the type of death involved. Okay. So in case of violent death, such as suicide, accident, or a person who has like a massive stroke, the person is walking, is totally fine, and all of a sudden has a massive stroke and goes. Or if the person gets shot, right? I'm alive, I'm going, and all of a sudden I go, something that I'm not expected. The spirit is surprised and is astonished and doesn't believe that has passed away because it just came out of the blue, right? It takes them by surprise. So, and again, because they still see themselves, I have a body, I'm talking, so they don't believe that it's different if I'm in a terminal illness and I know it's coming. And I know it's coming. It sometimes can be a little bit easier when it happens to understand, okay, now I understand I'm discarnated. Okay. Not saying that just because I'm on a terminal illness and I'm preparing, I could not be in a state of confusion for many years and months and weeks. We still can. But in general, this is more common with sudden deaths, where the spirit didn't even have time to understand what happened. And if then on top of that, again, I'm someone who believes in nothing after death, again, it's going to be hard for me even harder for me to understand that I discarnated, because I still have a body, I still can talk, I still, and I wasn't expecting this death. So then I don't know what to do. And I think I'm alive and I'm going to still in the state of confusion. So those are the spirits that they're going to, even sometimes, because when they discarnate, they go after their families, and now the family is in the funeral. So they follow the family to the funeral and they don't even understand there's their own funeral. It's like, oh, who died? They just know that the family went to a funeral, so they go together, but they don't even get this their own funeral, right? They don't. So they want to know, like, who died here, right? And some of them get even scared, because then when they get close to the coffin and see themselves, they don't understand, but what's happening here? I didn't die. And they're in despair in the spiritual world, trying to scream, I didn't die, I'm here, right? Because again, the state of confusion. They don't understand what's happening. They don't understand that there's only death of the body. We as a spirit, we don't die. We are eternal, okay? So that's why in the book Heaven and Hell, Kardec tells this to us. There is nothing painful about the state of confusion following death for moral individuals. They are calm, and their perceptions are those of a peaceful awakening. However, for those whose conscience is not pure, it's full of anxiety and anguish. Okay. And how long is going to last this state of confusion? Is going to last until the spirit gain an understanding of this new situation. So until the spirit doesn't understand what's happening, understand they discarnated, they did now the spiritual plan, they're going to live in this state of confusion, not really understand what's happening with them. Okay. And there's one last aspect that I wanted to bring. Now that I have all this knowledge, we understand that, how this process happens, what's going to dictate it, how long it's going to take, and how much suffering we're going to have during this process or anything. I just want to bring one last concept to us. That both the Spirit's book and the book Heaven and Hell bring to us is to make it very clear that to have a peaceful and an easier discarnation, or to shorten the state of a confusion, nobody needs to be a spiritist, okay? Because as the spirits tell us on the question 165 of the Spirit's book, it says, the practice of good and purity of conscience exerts the most influence. So literally, what's going to decide how quick we're going to go, this disconnection, how much we're going to suffer, it's going to be easier, how in the state of confusion, is really how much we have practice of good. It's our moral values. It's how we lived our lives while we are here. Did we live our lives led by the laws of love and charity to our best, how I could say here, to the best of our efforts, because we're not perfect, right? We're all going to make mistakes, but what really leads us, right? It's my greedy, it's my selfishness, or I'm trying actually to do my best and get rid of those. That's what's going to be dictated. Not because I'm a spiritist. It's not because I have the knowledge of what's happening during the moment of, just because I know we live after, I'm a spiritist and I know we're gonna die, and I know how this disconnection is gonna happen, that's automatically gonna make me disconnect easier. No. Okay. So if it doesn't really going to change how much is going to be my my discarnation, why it's important for us to have this information? It's because having this information, this knowledge that spirits give to us, it will help us to understand that we are the ones who are going to decide how our process for discarnation will be, right? So it helps us to understand the need for being less selfish and materialistic, and give more importance to our moral advancement. So it gives us a perspective of what's really important while we're here, right? Gives us this helps us to have to understand that the corporeal life is temporary, but the spiritual life is eternal. So it gives us the tool to make our transition at the moment of our corporeal life less painful, less scary. Because now, instead of I have the Lamborghini and think, oh, I want and it's mine, I understand there was just a gift to help me to do what I had to do while I was here, and be grateful for it. But know that eventually we're going to have to return everything, my clothes, my body, even the body. This body does not belong to us. It's just an amazing, beautiful gift that God gave to us for a period of time so we can be here and fulfill our missions, what it's, grow, morally grow. So if we have this concept the Spiritism brings to us, allow us to be less materialistic, or at least to work on it, to understand I need to work on it, I need to be less materialistic. So at the moment I need to leave everything behind, I'm already detached from it, right? I'm already saying, I'm okay. I can leave everything behind. My conscience is more or less clean because nobody is a full clean conscience, but I'm and I have my faith, and I know if that's the moment to go, I can go. So that's why it's important for us to have this information. But there's one more key thing here that makes it so important for us to understand how this disconnection happens and what happens at the moment of disconnection, is to give us the conscious of how important is our role during the disconnection of our loved ones. So our sentiments and mental state can help them during the disconnection process. Okay, such as just doing a sincere prayer for them, to ask for the spiritual plan to assist them. The same way that we can make their disconnection harder, right? By having acceptance during the moment that we lose a loved one. And I'm saying acceptance, I'm not saying like you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't feel sad, you shouldn't feel angry. We are allowed to feel all those things, and we should feel all those things when someone that's really close to us die, because this means being a human being, right? We are allowed to have those sentiments, and you should let those sentiments come out if that's what we're feeling at that moment. But at the same time, as a Spiritism, hopefully we have the tool to understand, yes, I am sad, yes, I am angry, but I know that's going to be for a brief moment, and eventually I'm going to accept that it's time for them to go, and I will let them go, right? Because we see this as well. Andrea Luiz brings us in his books. Spirit was once like it's time to go. There's no way the spiritual plans they're ready to take it, and the wife is pulling him back, screaming and crying, "Don't go! I can't let you go!" And this is making him, is giving him pain because he knows he has to go, but he doesn't want to leave his wife in that moment of despair, right? Um, are we allowed to have the moment of despair? We are allowed to have the moment of despair. I don't want people to hold stuff that they're feeling inside just because, Spiritism said we can't because I'm gonna hurt this. It's not what I'm saying about, but we need to have that moment, and then eventually have to stop and think and say, you know what, have faith, and say, God, if that's the moment you want to take this loved one here, I am going to suffer. It is painful. I am very sad. I'm even angry. But you know what? I don't want them to suffer. So let's pray for them, because our state of spirit as well is going to help them, or can make it a little bit more difficult. And it's going to happen regardless, right? But it's going to be help them a lot. And have to remember that a lot of us spirits watch their own funerals. So how many times you go to funerals to see jokes, gossip about the person who died, say bad things about them, and they hear everything. And sometimes a very little people in the moment of the spirit that's still there, disconnecting from the body many times. Very few people in the moment doing a prayer, asking for the spirit to helping them in this process of a disconnection, regardless if they're still attached and disconnected, or if they're fully disconnected. It is not easy for them as well. So we understand that our state of mind, what we transmit to them, can also help, especially spirits that disconnected by suicide and by violent deaths. We can help them so much in this painful process of disconnection and disconnecting. Okay, and that's why Kardec tells in the book Heaven and Hell, sincere prayer is a form of spiritual magnetization that brings about a more rapid disaggregation of the spiritual fluid. So yes, we can help them. Of course, in those cases, the spirit is going to have to suffer the consequences of their doing, yes, but we can help them. We can mitigate them. We can send our love. We can send and help them in this process that is already painful. Doesn't need to be, we don't need to add to their pain. If anything, let's help to release the pain, right? So let's think about, so that's how this whole knowledge that the Spirit's book brings to us, and the book Heaven and Hell brings to us, help us. It's going to help us to have a more conscious and to say, well, if I want to have an easier discarnation, I need to change what I'm doing here right now. But I also know that we can help also our loved ones, and even the ones that we don't know, but we know, especially the ones that know they had a difficult discarnation. Let's help them by sending our sentiments of love, our prayers, and peaceful thoughts to give them the strength and the courage to go through this process that for some of them is so difficult. Okay. That's what I had to bring to today to all of us, a little bit of this concept of what happens at the the dreadful moment that we all afraid of, that we all of don't know what's gonna happen, right? And I hope that it's not scary. And there's many other aspects that we could be talking about. It's just we have a short time, but you have to remember one very important aspect is this whole process is supervised by the superior spirit. No matter if you're disincarnated by suicide, no matter if you're a criminal when you're here, no matter if you're more evolved spirit, we all, at the moment of discarnation, are supported by the spiritual plan, by the more evolved spirits that are around us to help with this process. So let's never forget, we're not alone. Okay, we're not alone on this side because our loved ones are going to be praying for us, and we're not alone on the other side, right? And that's it.
That's right. It is. Thank you so much, for talking about this. And obviously in such a nice and clear way, concise way. I think we're going to invite our panel members here to join us now, and we can chat a little bit about it. And I'm just going to change the screen to a little gallery now, so we can all see each other better. So there's one thing that I find interesting on that topic, and I'll start the discussion, is that a lot of people ask me sometimes, it's like, we can't really, there's a balance, right? So we can't be praying that there's a balance, like I can't pray and kind of thinking that they have to go, but I can't keep them here. It's like sometimes I feel it's not their time, so I want to make sure I empower them so they can stay. That kind of feeling that no, I want them here. I want them to go, but then at the same time you think about it, and it's like but I don't want to be pushing them to go at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So and a lot of families struggle, and I know people talk to me, and they're all struggle about like what exactly I should pray like at that time, right? Because to kind of keep that balance. Let's put it this way. I think that's a nice, interesting topic.
Yeah. I think what happens in that moment is it's going to be highly related to how much faith we have.
Mm-hmm.
I think let's say the right thing, I don't like to use this term, the right thing, but the right thing would be to have, if we really had a faith in that moment, we would say it's whatever God wishes, is to really put it in God's hands and say, if it is the moment to go, here it goes. But if it's the moment to stay, is to say, God, it's your wish here in the moment, right? But it's very hard for us because it is that mixture in that moment, right? I don't want them to go, and if it's not the moment, I want to give them the energy to come back. But if it is the time to go, I want to let them go. So if it's possible, try to put in the God's, is to give that energy and say, God, if this energy, use this energy in a way that should be used. If you want to use it to help them to come back, it will be. If it's to help them to actually go in an easier way, it will be, right? It's to me, that's the moment that we have to give it to who's in control, which is God, right? But it's very hard. And that's why to me, it's very important to assure to people that you are allowed to feel sad, you are allowed to feel angry, you are allowed, because a lot of times when we read this, like I said, we read this on the Spiritism, we think we have to hold our sentiments. Oh, I cannot feel sad because the Spirit's going to feel my sadness, and then no, right? Because it'd be very hard. It's even a Spirit, if I just kind of nobody's sad, like really? I'm done. Hey guys, I'm done. Nobody's sad, nobody's angry, like fine for you guys, right? Like imagine, right? It's okay to feel sad, right? I think the problem to me is the prolonged, is when you weeks later, months later, you're still calling this person back. You still don't let it go. You're still angry. You still, that's I think the most problem. But in the beginning, it's normal, right?
Good lecture, Teresa. Thank you. It's very hard, especially because there is love attached, right? Like it's easier for us to be here and get disattached by material things because we know it's all temporary, but the be far apart from the ones that we love. This is the hardest thing. And I remember this is when I became a spiritist over 30 something years ago when my father passed away. I used very, very Catholic, and I would go to the church and I would get no consolation. And Spiritism was the only thing that I felt assured that my father didn't die. Because the spirit never dies. He was just away from me, from my eyes point of view. And when my mother passed away, I was already a spiritist, and I remember going to, and I got very depressed. And I remember going to my family doctor in Canada and asking him when this is going to be over, because I can't take this anymore. I was in pain of the separation. And he said, it depends. For some people, it takes a week. For some other people can take a month, and some other people takes forever. So if you understand that this is your own process, and that's a learning tool for you to understand not only yourself, but God and his laws, then you'll be much in a better place, and you can heal this pain because you know the person is not gone. You just, it's your selfishness that is acting up because you wanted them to be closer to you. So that's my 5 cents here that I
And that's
wanted to share.
exactly right, because you have feelings of guilt, of loss, of sadness, and fear for the future, because often you, depending on the relationship we have with the person who just died, you have a dependency, you have a connection, and then suddenly your life is going to change. Right? So a lot of it is to understand that, have the faith, as you said, that the loved one will be taken care of, and we will all go this way at some point in time. It is how we accept that transition of the other spirit that's going to affect how we continue our lives until our time comes.
Yeah.
Now, Teresa, could you explain a little bit more, how do the spirits help on this transition? At the time of discarnation, we've seen books by André Luiz and so forth, but could you just summarize what's the role of your spirits that help you in that transition? Why do we need those spirits?
So, and André Luiz brings this, and I can't remember now the name of the book, but it shows how they come. So like we were saying, the spirit disconnects cell by cell, right? And then it has to be the disconnection. And of course, the harder, the more connected you are, the more you're going to need actually the spiritual help to help the disconnection to happen. And then the final thread, which is really like an umbilical cord, which is pretty much the same one that when we're sleeping, it goes, when we go, wandering around, it's the one that connects us. That's the hardest one, actually, in the end. It's always the last one to be disconnected. And a lot of times that you need the spiritual plan to come and actually break that tie. Especially the last tie, to help it to break. You see that on the André Luiz books, where they come and they do come but also to receive us on the other side, right? You disconnected, you need to find someone there to, to guide you, to talk to. Sometimes could be even someone from your spiritual family that comes to receive you. Usually your mentor will be there with you, and could be, depending on what's the necessity of the spirit, you could have a few spirits helping the process. You could have maybe just one or two spirits helping you. It depends what it is, but they really need to help, and use it almost like passes to help to break those ties that are very strong, but especially they help around this final cord that needs to be broken in the end, which for some spirits can be quite hard to do it, right? And that's why it can take, but the thing is, they cannot just come here and, no, I'm gonna snap my fingers and disconnect you. No, they need to let the process happen, but they will help to just make it a little bit easier, and also to finish that final connection that stays, which in a lot of the more evolved spirits, by the time the organic life ends, that's pretty much the only thing that needs to be disconnected. But even there, on the moral spirits, that connection is not strong, right? The connection can be broken easy. In the more materialistic spirits, that connection is very strong, especially the very final connection in there. I remember one of the books of Andrea Luiz, he shows like the amount of energy that you need to put to finally break the last connection from the spirit. I don't know if that's what you were asking about, Joe, but if I understood correctly the question.
Exactly. That was exactly what I was asking for.
And the book is the Workers of Life Eternal, right?
Thank you. That they come to pick up all the 5 spirits,
yeah,
right?
The 5,
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go through 5 disincarnations, right? So yeah.
And that's the same book that shows the spirit needs to go, and the wife is crying and going,
Exactly.
and the spirit cannot go. So then finally the spirit takes her out of the room, so they can do the work of a discarnation with him. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we do have an influence on each other, right? Including on the moment of discarnation. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. Yes. Yeah.
Very good analogy.
It's a perfect analogy. I never thought about it, but that's exactly what it is. And it's an eco-friendly as well analogy, better than mine, because it's an electrical car. No, it is. It's a perfect analogy. Yeah. Never thought about the one. Mm. And I like what one thing that Sandra brought. It's about love, because yeah, all the material stuff stays behind. Love is forever. It will go with us. That's why it is the hardest part, right? It is a hard part to let someone go, or know that I'm gonna leave behind the people that I love, right? But then at the same time, because this is the hard, because that connection is eternal. Everybody is connected by the laws. At the same time, that's why Spiritism brings, like Sandra said, because it is forever. We always gonna be connected, and we're not gonna be separated by a heaven and hell. We're not gonna be, we're gonna be connected, and gives us the tools to be connected to those people. And if we keep that in mind, it may help us eventually to ease and to accept that we're still connected, we still can even, maybe meet up during our sleeping time. We can connect each other to thought, to prayer, and knowing that eventually we're all going to connect in the spiritual plan again, right? And that's great.
And just to make a point that might be obvious, but it's worth mentioning just the same, that this experience is the same whether you're a spiritist or non-spiritist, if you believe in any religion or if you don't believe in God and believe in God. The purpose that the spirits have come and given us such explanations is for us to first understand that the cycle is continuous. Life and death, incarnate and disincarnate. This is what we are being created for. Each one is a new phase in our existence. We can't say life anymore. It's our existence. We have many lives. But ultimately, we're all trying to go back home, which is our spiritual world.
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And we're now 5 minutes past 12, so I think it's time for us to wrap up our meeting for today. And I would like again to thank Teresa for the lecture, for everyone here present, and for everyone that's with us connected, right, through all sorts of media, social media, and through the computer now. But hopefully very soon we're going to be seeing each other in person. And we're going to finish with our prayer, and obviously inviting you for our next lecture next Sunday. And not only that, our studies that are also available during the weekdays and Wednesday. And as I mentioned, as soon as we'll be open, obviously welcome you again in our home at TSS. Okay, so I'll do the final prayer for us. Okay, so let's take this opportunity again to thank you, God, our Father, Mother, Creator, for the opportunity that we had this morning, for everyone, the spirits that are connected with us, our mentors, our guardian spirits, our familiar spirits, the ones that are suffering, the ones that are here for helping us, all this community that inhabits this planet that we call home, our friends connected to us at this moment, sharing the same vibration. May we all unite our thoughts and our hearts and project to everyone around us this energies of tranquility, of healing, of love, so we can continue to unite ourselves in the message of love that Jesus brought to us. And today, understanding a little bit more about who we are and the many cycles we have in our existences, how we discarnate the body that we give, this machine that we get as a gift to come and inhabit this planet. May we understand the importance of it, the blessing of having something that we can work with like this. And may we all continue protecting our bodies, ourselves, who we are, and helping others always. Thank you again for this beautiful opportunity we had to learn. And we ask for the blessings for the days and weeks to come, not only for us, but for all our cities, our countries, and our planet. So be it.
So be it.
So
So
be
be
it.
it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.